everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast, and welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have another great show for you this week. We have another wonderful selection from the Criterion Collection. We have some racy titles from Severin. We have some really small boutique labels. We have some big budget action extravaganzas. We have a little bit of something for everyone, and I'm really excited to dive into it this week. So I'm going to start off with one of my bigger titles. This is one of the big titles from the end of last year from Paramount. It is the video game sequel, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 from Paramount on 4K Ultra HD in this steelbook form. There is a standard slipped version, but I have the steelbook version. So I'll show that off a little bit. I am a pretty decent fan of the Sonic franchise. I grew up playing the games. And so far, out of the preceding movies that they've made, I've quite enjoyed what they've put out. And this third one, I think, really just continues on a good path for that. You had the introduction of Shadow, and bringing back like Tails and Knuckles and Robotnik, and another Jim Carrey role, playing two dual roles in this one. And this just really carries on the narrative quite well. I think after that disastrous first trailer that Sonic released with the teeth and everything, this creative team just really knew how to course correct and really just mostly give fans what they want. It's not all perfect. Sometimes there's some slow moments or a little bit overindulgence in fan service, but overall, this is a really solid franchise and it offers a lot of fun. Some really, like, a decent amount of heart to this. It's not just a soulless exercise, which I really appreciate, especially with Shadow's storyline. There's a lot about dealing with grief and how what you do with that negative energy that you have inside yourself and how maybe you can put it towards something good rather than something that bad that brings you down. All this stuff, plus tons of very funny moments and big action spectacle and great special effects and great voice work from Ben Schwartz and Keanu Reeves, and just everyone is just doing a very good job. And legitimately, Jim Carrey, I miss him doing other comedic roles, but as like these dual roles in this particular movie, he does a fantastic job. And his character goes into some wild places, his dance breakdowns, all that good stuff. I still enjoy it. I wish Jim Carrey would get back to like his regular comedies like he was doing like in the 90s and early 2000s. But at least he's still on screen in some form and he's good in Sonic. So it's a good, pretty fun sequel. If you like the first two, I think you'll more than like this one. And this 4K presentation is really nice. 4K, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, brand new movie. So it looks terrific. It sounds amazing. And no qualms at all with the audio-visual presentation. In terms of the special features, there's a good amount. They continue to put commentary tracks on these movies, and they're always pretty entertaining because you had the director and Ben Schwartz, the voice of Sonic, who is a gifted comedian, and they have a lot of fun on this. 8 featurettes and a short film, gag reel, deleted scenes. This is packed with special features, at least for a studio movie in these days. It's pretty packed with special features. So Sonic, if you're a fan, buy with confidence, either this nice steelbook or the standard version. Either way, it's a good addition to your collection, and I think if you're a fan, you will not be displeased. And I'm going to cover another steelbook release. It's a release I've written about on Geek Vibes, but I wanted to show it off on here. It is the Lionsgate limited release of the Den of Thieves collection. So these are the 2 Den of Thieves movies here on 4K. The Den of Thieves 2, this opens up here like a vault to the both steelbooks. Den of Thieves 2 is available on 4K separately, but if you want the first Den of Thieves, you can only get it in this Lionsgate limited release. So I'll show off. This is Den of Thieves, the unrated cut is on the 4K. Both versions are on Blu-ray, and the Lionsgate Limited, for those who've missed some of my previous episodes, is a dedicated website created by Lionsgate near the end of last year, where they're bringing a lot of like kind of more niche titles to disc that maybe weren't, like, they wouldn't be able to justify giving a full retail release, but it's allowing them to kind of make some fun choices and bringing their catalog to 4K. So I've talked about recent titles like The Conversation and You're Next and The Third Man. And while these titles would, of course, have done well regardless, I think this is a good way to get the first one into 4K. And if you want a steelbook for the second one, that's the only way to get the steelbook of this Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. These movies, they're not high works of art or anything. The first one especially is just kind of like a Heat knockoff of sorts. It's fun. You got Gerard Butler and O'Shea Jackson Jr. kind of squaring off, and just how that dynamic, and there's some really good like kind of twists and turns, and you got like 50 Cent and everything. But how that kind of evolves to the second film, and it almost like takes on another Michael Mann-esque like Miami Vice feel. These movies are kind of just mindless fun. There's some, like, I think the second movie tries a little bit too hard to kind of capitalize on like the twists of the first movie. They try to deliver their own twist that's not quite as effective as it was in the first movie. That really kind of was genuinely surprising. The second one, it always feels like it's trying to set up for a third movie, which a third movie has been greenlit. But I still have fun with these movies. They're kind of, if you like kind of fun heist action movies, and you like Gerard Butler and everything, I think you will have a good time with these. Like I said, they're not amazing, but they're fun if you're into the right mood for this kind of like dude movie, which I often am. So the Den of Thieves collection, these are both in 4K, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos audio. These look really good in 4K. The Dolby Vision brings out a lot of nice colors within these. Nice saturation, deep black levels, no blown highlights. Everything's very even and clean, but not like while sacrificing the grittiness of the aesthetic. Dolby Atmos sounds great, immersive, everything very, very good. In terms of special features, you get like an additional introduction and everything on the first movie, from the director that kind of explains some of the things that were going into this new release. And then you also get the archival special features from the first release. And then the second release, both releases have audio commentaries. The audio commentary on the first movie is only on the Blu-ray disc because it's only on the theatrical cut. You get various featurettes and outtakes, deleted scenes, an alternate ending. So a decent number of special features, not overflowing, but decent number. But the Den of Thieves collection from Lionsgate Limited, it's a really beautiful release, nicely packaged. It's like some thought was put into this to make it just look and feel very cool in person, nice weight to it, and the steelbooks look very nice. So if you want the first film on 4K, it's the only way to get it. If you want the second film on steelbook, this is the only way to get it, but you can still get the 4K separately for Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. So make sure to check out the Lionsgate Limited website if you're interested in getting both of these on 4K. Staying in the action world a little bit, going over to Mill Creek Entertainment's release of the television documentary series Icons Unearthed, this time with James Bond. So this is a series that I've covered several times on this program. We've had Star Wars, The Simpsons, Fast and the Furious, Marvel, I think was the last one. Now we have James Bond. There's actually 3 discs here. Disc 2 and 3 are stacked over here, and then disc 1 is over here. There are 6 episodes in this series that cover the James Bond franchise from the early days of Ian Fleming's novels and learning how to adapt that for the screen. to their first brush with having to replace a Bond, and then getting to or later Bonds that were getting a little bit older and having to kind of find ways to rejuvenate the franchise, like with Pierce Brosnan coming in, and then eventually with the Daniel Craig era that would just ended addressed in the final episode. So this has a good number of people in here. I think one of the most interesting subjects that is in this one is the director Martin Campbell, who did Goldeneye and Casino Royale. And then you have George Lazenby, Gloria Hendry, Jeff Kleinman, who's an MGM executive, director John Glenn, Jeffrey Kane, a writer. So you do have actually one of the Bonds with Lazenby, and then a lot of great behind the scenes people, either from an executive level or directors or writers and stuff. So good variety and points of view of this particular series. And this offers a nice broad overview of the series while getting some interesting anecdotes from each person. So I've generally enjoyed this documentary series and kind of getting a little bit behind the scenes details on stuff that I already love. And this is just another good intro to this. And I really like having this on Blu-ray, especially because the extended interviews that they usually put on here as special features. So there's only 6 episodes spread over the first 2 discs. And then there's additional interviews on both of those discs. And then there's an additional 3rd disc just with more additional interviews. So in addition, there's 7 full-length interviews that are included on here from the subjects. And all of those interviews range from 1 to 3 hours long, like a 3-hour unedited interview in some respects. I believe that's what the former MGM executive. But like Martin Campbell, the director, he has a 2.5 hour uninterrupted interview on here. So if you really want to like not have like the chopped up kind of like bullet points versions of these interviews, if you really want to get to everything that was said and within context and everything, this is a really cool way to view these interviews on Blu-ray. So that's some people might not think that they need to own like a documentary series, like, oh, maybe I'll watch that once on Blu-ray. But this is a really cool release from Mill Creek Entertainment. And this is Mill Creek, so sometimes their encoding can be a little wonky. But for these series, they've typically been doing a good job. Nothing is like egregiously like compression or anything like that is not totally off. And all the colors look really nice and everything. For a documentary presentation, you're usually not getting too picky with the quality, but it does look quite nice by Mill Creek standards. Sound is perfectly solid as well. And then, as I said, all the full-length interviews that you get. This is just a really nice presentation from Mill Creek. They do a nice job with this. I'm going to hope that they continue to release these. I hope they've been doing well for them, because I really like this kind of programming to get a Blu-ray release, especially since I don't subscribe to cable, so I miss a lot of things like this. So I want to be able to own this and be able to watch it as whenever I want to, without commercials and just all the special features and everything. So if you're like me and you want this in your life, this is a good release for James Bond fans, for documentary television fans that just want to know something about an institution. This is a good release from Mill Creek. Sticking with the world of television, going over to AMC and RLJ's release of The Mayfair Witches Season 2, starring Alexandra Daddario, returning for the 2nd season of this wild show that's kind of set in the same Anne Rice universe as like the new Interview with a Vampire television series and some other forthcoming TV shows set in this universe. So the first season was slightly rocky for me. I enjoyed a lot of elements of it, but there was some things that didn't really quite click for me. This one picks up just right after the first season, where our main character here, she experiences, I'll keep vaguely, I don't want to spoil anything. She experiences a big change at the end of last season, leading into this first season, that really continues to resonate throughout these 8 episodes. And it really just impacts her, her family, her community, and just kind of everything that's going on around her. There's a lot of darkness surrounding her and just uncertainty. And like I said, I'm trying to keep it vague because I don't want to spoil anyone who's like wanting to jump into this series. But many of my complaints for the first season tend to carry on to this season. I think overall it's a tighter, more focused season on this second season, but it still seems to really drag when it comes to character development outside of our main character. A lot of the tangential characters, or like some of the more interesting characters, you get kind of moments with them throughout the season, but you don't always understand why they are making certain choices. Some narrative threads, some of the diversions seem a bit nonsensical. You don't understand why characters, like the motivations for them making certain choices, or what their interior life is, or really getting a sense of who they are, or why they want certain outcomes and everything. Overall, I just wish this movie or this series took a little bit more time to breathe a little bit. It takes a little bit more time to cover like the material in the novels. They kind of interpret it in their own way, which is fun, but they also take time to really get into the nuances and really get a lot out of the material. This covers some pretty thick books in like a very short amount of time, so they're kind of speeding through things, and it doesn't hit as emotionally as they probably could if they just spend a little bit more time developing certain aspects. And there's also seemingly a lot of pressure on this series to be an anchor point for a lot of other series that are being developed, so you get a lot of things that are planted in this season that are going to kind of pay off in other shows in the near future. It is a better season overall, I would say, and I'm still very invested in this. It's just very chaotic at times, and I just don't understand why people are making certain choices or why characters are acting so dumb at times. But I still enjoy it. It is a fun show, and I like all the performers on there. There's a lot of campy elements. There's a lot of just like batshit elements that are fun. But overall, I'm having fun with it. I just wish they would slow down a little bit, take some time, make the characters have a little bit more to them, and I think they would really have something here. But overall, it's still a decent series. I just think it could be a little bit better with a little bit of finessing. Blu-ray looks nice. This season just ended like a little over a month ago. So it's a brand new show, looks great on Blu-ray, and sounds great as well. You do get a good number of special features. Every disc has an inside, or every episode has a inside the episode like kind of brief entry that kind of goes over the events of the episode. You get a 30-minute Comic-Con panel. You get a 42-minute behind the scenes documentary. So overall, a good number of special features for the second season of Mayfair Witches. If you're a fan of the show, it's a good Blu-ray release. If you're a fan of the Interview with the Vampire universe that they're building, this is a pretty decent entry. Just all the caveats I said, it's a good Blu-ray release if you're interested. Staying in the supernatural realm a little bit, but going to a more prestige label, I'm going to a run of Criterion Collection titles, my first of which is the 4K upgrade of the 1953 movie Ugetsu. So this is a movie I've had on my radar for quite a bit. The Blu-ray was released, I believe, in like 2018. But I never picked it up, and then it got to a point when I considered it. Criterion was already starting to release stuff on 4K, so I figured I'd wait, and my patience has paid off. So this comes with a really thick booklet here that has a lot of great essays, and that kind of gives additional context as to what you view in this movie. But basically it is a mixture of Japanese wartime tale mixed with kind of ghost story, supernatural elements. It mostly concerns these two brothers during wartime who are both married. One of which wants to kind of make ceramics and everything, and wants to sell his wares during this wartime. Whenever his wife is warned for him not to do this during wartime by kind of like a mystical person, and he kind of does so anyway. And then the other brother, he wants to be a samurai and really prove himself and everything, despite his wife just kind of saying that she is perfectly happy with his station in life and everything, but he is not happy with it, and he feels like he needs to prove something. that he doesn't really need to prove. Both of these people, these brothers, going against kind of what they are kind of encouraged to do, leads them down a really kind of dark and unfortunate path. And then there are actualized ghosts in this story of just like haunted women who kind of roam the plains after being killed and just kind of luring people into their orbit, and kind of how that kind of impacts the narrative and everything. It's not completely like over the top supernatural. It's just kind of like a light touch mixed within this kind of wartime obstacles that these characters are facing, and just like the general beleagueredness of society and all these people are going through. It's very tragic, but it's also very engaging. Just seeing like the character work and all these how these characters react to certain situations. This is from Kenji Mizoguchi. And he does this is one of his like latter films, like latter part of his career. This is a really good one. And I think it really handles that tonal balance between the supernatural and the wartime efforts really well. It's a beautiful film with the cinematography. Everything is just constructed very well, and it's not like overly long either. It's only 95 minutes. It packs a lot into this like hour and a half narrative. With the cinematography, you want it to look the best it can, so I'm glad this did get a 4K release. It is from a 4K restoration of the 35mm fine grain master positive and 35mm duplicate negative. It's a combination of those two. And this is an SDR. This is not an HDR release, which is not the first time you'll be hearing that on this episode. So no high dynamic range. It's just the original 4K restoration of this title in its full glory in SDR. For the restoration itself, it looks very nice. I didn't notice any major blemishes or anything. The grayscale and everything looks nice and solid. No crushed blacks, no blown highlights. There's a lot of great detail in this, and even though not the original camera negative isn't the source, everything looks quite detailed and everything. And despite the lack of HDR, the SDR presentation makes it look perfectly good. If you do not have this title yet, I think the 4K is the way to go, because compared to the Blu-ray, it has especially a better encode, but even like the contrast and how it is handled, there is the way that the 4K is implemented, there is a benefit to this SDR presentation over the Blu-ray, in addition to just the better compression and more detail and everything. But it has the original mono soundtrack. Sounds very good. That has been remastered. I don't think it's been remastered from the Blu-ray, but just in general, it's been remastered. You do get a commentary track, a 2.5-hour documentary, and 3 interviews and some trailers. So really good, deep special features, a good 4K presentation for this one for those who do not own it yet, or even if you do, I think this 4K presentation is a really nice upgrade from the Blu-ray. So make sure to check this out if you're a fan of Japanese cinema. You get beautiful presentation, great packaging, thick booklet, full of great essays. I can't really complain with this one. Ugetsu has gotten a really nice release from the Criterion Collection. My next title, going from one black and white film to another, which is something I'll delve into a little bit more. It is the 1996 film Basquiat from director Julian Schnabel. I believe it is his feature directorial debut. And yes, so this presentation, this is a new 4K presentation that was conducted in concentration with Julian Schnabel for a new black and white version of the movie. Now, I wasn't overtly familiar with this movie, so I did not know that this was not a black and white movie whenever I watched it, because the black and white version is the only one presented in 4K on the 4K disc of that. So whenever I first popped it in, I watched the 4K. I was like, okay, black and white movie. This makes sense. Everything looked fine. I then explored the special features a little bit more and then started reading some of the forums. And then I realized that this is actually originally in color. And the color version, the original 1996 version, is on here on the Blu-ray, also restored in 4K, which leads me to wonder, why did they not release both of these versions on 4K disc, and have the option for viewers to decide what they want? Even if it required an extra disc, I don't think viewers would have been disappointed that they were able to get two different 4K versions. But as it is, the black and white version is the only one on 4K in Dolby Vision, and it does look very nice. At my first time watching it, not knowing it was supposed to be in color, it looked very natural, and I understand why Julian Schnabel wanted to create this version of the movie, because it does suit the narrative very well. It really does look like a product of the 90s. But the other argument to that is this is a film about Basquiat, who is a famous painter and artist, and so a lot of his work would deal with colors. So not being able to see that in color is a hindrance in some respects. So I can see both versions of this. It works in black and white, but I think both versions should have been available in 4K. But 4K presentation looks very nice. So both of these are from 4K restorations of the 35mm original camera negative in Dolby Vision and DTS 5.1 audio. These look very nice. So no crushed blacks. The compression looks very nice on 4K. Really great detail and everything. Like whenever you see any textures of any canvases or anything, you do get some nice texture within there. It's just a really nice presentation. I think the color presentation on Blu-ray does look very nice, but this is also having two versions, the black and white and the color version, on one disc. Means that there are some minor encoding hindrances that doesn't make this look its best. They still look very good, and it's good to have this movie on Blu-ray in its color form at all. But it's just like I said, it should have both been on 4K. So for those who don't know, this is Jeffrey Wright's first starring role in a movie, and I'm a big Jeffrey Wright fan, and I had never seen this film before. And he is fantastic as Basquiat. He really commands the screen, and there's so many people that are throughout this movie that I was kept surprised that people kept showing up. So you have people like David Bowie, you have Dennis Hopper, Gary Oldman, Christopher Walken, Benicio del Toro, Claire Forlani, Parker Posey, tons of people in here, Michael Wincott. Just so many people that I was just shocked that just people kept showing up, and it was wild. This film, it's really just showing the art scene during this very prolific time, and so you had David Bowie plays Andy Warhol. It's a really kind of chaotic energy, but it's very invigorating. It's not kind of like a traditional biopic. It's kind of a little bit messy and stuff in a really interesting way. But if this subject interests you at all, if this artist or just these performers, if you like any of these performers, I think you will really enjoy this one. It's a really engaging watch. The 4K presentation, like I said, looks nice. And then in terms of special features, you do get a commentary track and an interview with Jeffrey Wright. So I loved the new interview with Jeffrey Wright. The commentary track is very engaging as well. So almost a perfect release, except for just the original color 1996 version, theatrical version, on not being on 4K. But at least it is included as an option on Blu-ray. It's just slightly below perfection. But Basquiat is worth checking out if any of that engages you or intrigues you at all. But as much as I enjoy the previous two Criterion releases, my favorite of the three I'm talking about this week is the new release of Claude Berry's two-part epic, Jean de Florette and Manon of the Springs. So this is a two-part epic, like I said, by Claude Berry, that tells the story set over a couple of decades. It's a family drama, and you had people like Gerard Depardieu, Les Montes, you have Danielle Auteuil, and Emmanuel Béart. I'm probably butchering all of these names to Kingdom Come. I apologize, but This is based on work, once again, I'll butcher this, by Marcel Pagnol, whose work I've seen adapted before. There was a film movement release of My Father's Castle, and the other part of that story that I really liked. It was a great coming of age tale that I really enjoyed from film movement. So I'm learning through this that I like Pagnol's work, like in a narrative sense, because I really enjoyed this two-part story, which begins. The first part, Jean de Florette, involves a uncle and a nephew kind of get together, and they're kind of like the kind of rich people around town, and they kind of want to expand to get a certain parcel of land from someone who is very unlikely to sell to them. But they go to confront this person. That person actually ends up dead, and it ends up, the land is inherited by Gerard Depardieu's character, who's like kind of one of the last people in this family line, who he's like has some medical issues. He's a hunchback and everything, but he's a city person who brings his family to the country and everything to start a farm and everything. But all the while, these two kind of scoundrels, are kind of plotting this man's demise by like plugging up his water source so he can fail, and then they can buy the land for cheap. And I'm trying not to overly explain this narrative, but it's just what this narrative accomplishes in this first half is really just showing kind of the depths of man, and really showing how people can let greed impact like their internal sense of goodness, and really how they can lead someone to their ruin in order for personal gain, and how that you can be like kind to someone to their face, all the while trying to plot their downfall. And it's shot in a way that's like very inviting, and like just like this idyllic countryside, but all the while, all the stuff that's going on, everything seems good on the surface. So there's like all this like rot underneath, and this all kind of plays out and pays off in the second installment, Manon of the Springs, which jumps forward in time after the events of the first movie, where the young daughter of the man in the first film has grown up, and just her kind of dealing with the aftermath of whatever happened in the first film. I really like both halves quite a bit. The second one's a little bit more uplifting of the two, I would say, but still has its own form of heartbreak. And these really work especially well as like two parts of a whole, because there are things that happen at the end of the second movie that recontextualize the first movie. It's very French, very like textured, and very just it's widely considered like to be one of the better French epics ever, and I can kind of get on board with that. I was completely glued to the screen over all like 4 hours of this story between the two movies, and I loved it. And these actors are amazing, the cinematography is beautiful, the score is great, everything about this I really loved, and it's just so warm and inviting, and just like thought-provoking, and I loved it so much. So this is like the kind of discovery I love to get from Criterion. I did not know about these movies beforehand, but I'm always wanting to learn more about international cinema, and I'm always just trying to scoop it all up and get all of it. And you'll see throughout the rest of my slate, I have a lot of international titles I'm talking about this week, so reading a lot of subtitles, but it's worth it whenever you get something as good as this. And just all these movies just really engage my senses in a way that I really love. So this is a new 4K release from the Criterion Collection. This was previously released on Blu-ray by Shout Factory. I had never had that release to compare this one to, but this is from a new 4K restoration. And this is from 4K restoration from the original camera negative provided by Pathé, I believe conducted in 2015. This is once again in SDR, and this was done with the supervision of the director of photography. So in terms of the color timing and everything, it should be pretty accurate to what it should be. And so there's like a nice kind of warm overall feeling to it, but it never feels artificially kind of boosted to any certain way. It seems perfectly in line with what I would expect from this particular narrative. But with the director of photography overseeing things, it should look quite accurate. And it looks great in SDR. Really great textures with the 4K presentation, presented at its fullest extent. The sound also sounds good. DTS 5.0 audio. So no dedicated subwoofer, but the full surround experience sounds great. It's very like I said, I love the score for this one. It sounds really nice as it fills the room, and you get a good sense of place with the sound of animals and everything in your surround speakers. Sounds great. And then you also get a good number of special features, including 2 pretty lengthy documentaries that really give you a lot of great context for this story and background and all that kind of good stuff that you would want. So Jean de Florette and Manon of the Springs. This is a 2-part epic that I would recommend to anyone who's a fan of international cinema. This just really did my heart good, and I think if you are intrigued about this at all, if you're not afraid of French cinema, this is about as French as it gets, but I love it. It's great release from Criterion Collection. Heading over to another label that is not anywhere near as established as Criterion Collection, but once they get some more releases under the belt, I think they'll be just as beloved. This is the second release from the great Celluloid Dreams. This is Short Night of Glass Dolls. So this is more so of a giallo-based label. And the first release that I covered from them was The Case of the Bloody Iris. And even on their second release, they made some changes to their packaging, which I'll kind of get into. So there's a few hiccups here that I want to note that some people have complained about. They're minor things, but just certain things went awry. Like they ran out of black cases. So this is a Blu-ray case for a 4K presentation. So I know that will drive some people a little crazy. But otherwise, if you're not like as OCD about getting like a black case or a clear case, just know that their manufacturer ran out of black cases, so they had to go with that. The other thing is the booklet here was cut just a little bit too long, so it sticks out from this like just by a centimeter or so. But it's a little bit that's a little bit more irritating that it's not more flush with the packaging. But the booklet itself is very nice, has some great essays and everything. But that's just a couple of minor nitpicks, just that I hate to point them out, but if you're a collector, you kind of want to know what you're getting into in advance. But the release itself is fantastic. This is a 4-disc set. And I did want to note that this new kind of chipboard box set is different from the slipcover of Case of the Bloody Iris. So it will look slightly different from that slip-covered release of the first film. But this is a 4-disc release. You get the film on 4K. You get the film on Blu-ray from the same restoration. You get a special features disc of just bonus features. And then you get a 4th disc full of different versions of the movie. You get a grindhouse version of the movie. So you get kind of like a more of a battered old school print. Like if you want to feel like the kind of genuine, like authentic old kind of presentation, and if like some people like with these giallo movies, you get that version. You also get an old VHS version called the Paralyzed version, which was what it was titled on VHS, and I believe in America that's pan and scan and everything, so you also get to relive it a different kind of way in that version as well. That's more so for the people who really want to dive deep in this kind of world. But it is a really cool addition for those who are just like hardcore like collectors and like just want to have different ways to experience a movie. But the movie itself, it's another interesting giallo from Celluloid Dreams. This one is very creepy because it starts with a man who, by all accounts, is presumed to be dead. He is brought into a morgue and everything. But then you start to hear his internal thoughts and you realize this man is not actually dead. He's kind of trapped in his own body, and he is trying to remember how he got there. And it kind of starts going through how he got to that point. And it involves like with his case of his missing girlfriend and discovering kind of secret societies and all kinds of weird stuff, are kind of reminiscent of Eyes Wide Shut almost, and just all kinds of weird stuff going on here. All the while you're understanding that this man could potentially be laid to rest within his own body, and that's just kind of like an existential fear that I did not need in my head, but like just knowing that you'd be powerless in your own body, that's terrifying. So if you have that kind of potential fear, this is probably going to exacerbate that quite a bit. But the movie itself is very engaging, and you have a lot of great twists and turns and developments, and it's a different enough from the standard giallo formula that I found it really fresh and exciting. And this is once again one that I probably would not have known about if a great boutique label like Celluloid Dreams did not bring it to my attention. So that's why I'm always grateful for these boutique labels for just expanding my knowledge of certain genres. That it's hard to just know everything about every genre. So thank you to these boutique labels for doing that. This is a really good release that is from a new 4K restoration courtesy of Celluloid Dreams. I have heard that overseas there's going to be an 88 Films release of this sometime in the near future. That is from a different restoration, but by all accounts, I think people, whenever they've compared Celluloid Dreams release of Bloody Iris to other titles, and me just looking at how this films looks with this new 4K restoration, they put so much love and care into their restorations that I gotta suggest that you support labels like this that really, like, they are trying to pour over every single little detail as much as they can. Despite a few of the packaging snafus, they've really listened to customer feedback, and they've tried to continue to improve. And this 4K restoration is great. It's a 4K restoration presented in HDR10. Looks very nice. Nice, bold, deep black levels. The natural film grain, no major blemishes. This has just been restored very carefully. Like I said, this is only the second title from the label, but both of the releases I've viewed have been nearly perfect. So I'm really excited to see what they continue to release. And then you get both English and Italian audio, and then a couple of different subtitle configurations, like English with the Italian, English with the English audio, that kind of stuff. You get 2 commentary tracks. One's archival, one is new for this release. You get an isolated score track, which was pretty cool as well. You get interviews, you get featurettes, and then you get the Grindhouse and VHS versions, as I said, on the extra disc. And it just loaded with special features from Celluloid Dreams. Plus, if you order from the Celluloid Dreams website, you get some cool extras as well, including a film strip that you can kind of see here. I believe this is a film strip from the trailer, from what I've read. And then you get some very big, don't know where I'm going to store these art cards, but it's cool to have them. So you have these, like, you can see in reference to me how big these are. So you get some really cool stuff here. Yeah, there you go. So that's if you order from the Celluloid Dreams website, which I'll have linked in the description here. If you have any issues or anything with customer service, they've been very responsive to customers and everything. I've not had any issues. From the feedback I've seen online, they've really made sure to kind of take care of anyone who needs anything. And they've just been really great to work with in general. So I hope people who are a fan of giallo genre or just like burgeoning boutique labels support Celluloid Dreams, because they've been doing such good work, and they have another title right around the corner as well, for later this year, hopefully. That sounds really interesting, and I'm really excited to get more from them because, like I said, they've been doing such good work, and this is The Short Night of Glass Dolls. It's very definitely worth adding to your collection if you're a fan of the genre. They put a lot of good work into this, and I think you'll be very pleased. Sticking in the world of international cinema, I'm going over to Kino Classics release of the great Andrei Tarkovsky's The Sacrifice. This is the final film from the Swedish filmmaker, and it is a doozy like all of his works. It's very meditative, but a little bit more propulsive than some of his titles that I've seen. I would say, like, especially maybe compared to the last one I talked about on this program, which was Nostalgia. I think I maybe like this one a little bit more. There's a lot of interesting things going in here. It's dealing with the end of the world, World War III, and faith, and just kind of bargaining and all that kind of stuff. So it involves like a family newly like kind of moved out to the countryside, learning that World War III is imminent, and then the faithless head of the household bargaining with God in order to saying like he will give up like all like his loved ones and everything if everyone can just be safe, and just kind of like just give up everything in hopes of like avoiding this war and everything, and how that eventually kind of plays out and everything, and just like his test of faith and what that means to him. And there's a lot going on. This takes up a full 2.5 hours of just kind of reflecting on like faith and life and war and the end and everything. There's a lot in this, along with like gorgeous cinematography and great subtle performances. Tarkovsky, he can be a quite challenging filmmaker for a lot of people. I know I've been challenged by him on more than one occasion. And did I get everything out of this on one viewing? Definitely not. But he is a filmmaker I definitely try to engage with as much as possible, and really try to dig into what he's saying and just kind of all the layers of what he's digging into. And for a final film, I think this is a really nice career capper. I know a lot of people, some people I've seen say they didn't think this was the strongest ending for him, but I did quite enjoy it myself. So I think especially if you're wanting to engage with Tarkovsky, very much worth checking out as just kind of that final entry in his career. And this new 4K restoration looks really nice. This is from a newer restoration from 2023 by the Swedish Film Institute. This is a 4K restoration of the original camera negative in SDR again, which with Kino, you kind of almost want an SDR presentation because they seem to do their better encoding with SDR. And it's a pretty solid release overall. Maybe minor things here and there where maybe could have been optimized a little better encode wise, but overall it's a really fetching looking presentation. Great bold colors, deep colors that are very accurate to kind of what you want for this particular aesthetic from Tarkovsky. He's very deliberate in his imagery, and I think this looks very nice. And it's no major blemishes or anything, minor things here and there, but overall really good restoration. You do get a commentary track with this one, and you do get an hour and 42-minute documentary, and then a 32-minute interview. So overall, Tarkovsky fans, you'll want to check this out on 4K. I do believe this is the best presentation of this title on physical media, but it's just a really engaging film. If you enjoy more like challenging, intellectually stimulating cinema, Tarkovsky, definitely one of the top ones who kind of like will challenge you and like push you, but it is worth it. So make sure to check out The Sacrifice if it interests you even in the slightest. Going over to a double feature, courtesy of the Cohen Film Collection. We have two films from Ismail Merchant from the Merchant Ivory Company. We have In Custody and The Proprietor. So here, two films from Ismail Merchant. In Custody involves a man who like kind of studies language and everything, going to try to learn from this famous poet who he looks up to, and kind of dig into kind of the language that he uses that's kind of starting to fade from society. I believe it's Urdu that they're talking about. And just kind of him kind of slightly becoming disillusioned by the man that he's built up in his head compared to what he is in real life, who's kind of like a man who's seen better days, to be kind. And kind of how their friendship develops over a certain amount of time. It's quite good, but I prefer the Proprietor personally. Not only because it stars my beloved Jean Moreau, it was a little bit more. I felt this one dealt a little bit too much with like some toxic personalities that didn't really like work with me in the best ways at all the time. So I felt a little bit better about the Proprietor overall, which had its own toxic personalities, but it kind of worked into the narrative a little bit more graciously, in my opinion. That's Jean Moreau as a woman, kind of an acclaimed writer who has memories and issues with the World War II era where she grew up, and her and her mom, and just kind of issues in her old house that is now up for sale, and she wants to kind of reclaim her house and like buy her house, but all the while dealing with kind of this lingering memories of what happened and kind of unpacking trauma and all that kind of stuff within this. And also kind of developing a new friendship with a younger man who's kind of like enchanted with her, and there's all kinds of stuff going on there. But these are pretty solid films from Ismail Merchant. These aren't my absolute favorite that I'm talking about this episode, but I've talked about a lot of great stuff. So this still ranks pretty highly in terms of international cinema I've watched in like recent weeks. Both of these, I believe, been restored and sometime in recent years. I'm not quite sure of the provenance of these, but Cohen Film Collection, they usually do a good job with these Merchant Ivory restorations, and both of these look quite good. No major like deficits to any of these. They look quite nice, consistent color saturation, everything, no major damage or anything. Audio sounds good as well, and you do get a commentary track for Proprietor and a short film. You do get an interview for In Custody, and yeah, overall, if you're a fan of Ismail Merchant, this one could really double feature, 2 films, 2 discs, so not overly compressed or anything. Just a good release from the Cohen Film Collection for these 2 international films. Now we're going back to the silent era, going back to Kino Classics, to 1930, and for Switzerland, it is Borderline. So this is kind of like a boundary-pushing film from 1930. So like I said, it's a silent era. It is about, but it's like topics that you wouldn't have seen in America. It is about an African-American couple who rent a room in this like Swiss town, and kind of what happens like kind of within the town whenever they do that. Kind of, it creates kind of like a racial storm within the town a little bit, especially when some affairs start happening, and there's like kind of issues of just like infidelity and racism and all kinds of stuff within this kind of little community. This has a really progressive view, especially for 1930, of sexuality and gender, and like it's pretty interesting. There's things that don't age like 100% well, but for 1930s, dealing with some of these like more taboo topics for the time, this is very interesting. But what I'm most impressed by Borderline is there's some amazing editing choices in here in terms of like the propulsiveness of this. I've watched quite a few silent films in my day, and this is one of the more like just invigorating watches in terms of silent films, where there's kind of like a pattern you get whenever you watch enough silent film. Like you hit a few beats and stuff, and then you get a inner title, and then blah, blah, blah. And then, but there's a lot, and just like there's standard shots in a lot of these, but there's a lot of movement in this film. And like, yes, you do get inner titles and everything, but they're very sparse, and just the way this camera moves and the editing is just so like precise. It was unlike like a lot of silent films I've seen, and that for that reason alone, if you're a fan of silent films and you just wanted something a little bit different, Borderline is certainly worth checking out. It's just a really rich experience that I was really glad that I was able to check out, especially with a lot of progressive notions within this. Just a really interesting film. And this does come from a 4K or a 2K restoration of the 35 millimeter elements that were housed in the George Eastman Museum. So the existing 35 millimeter elements. So this is 1930s silent film. There's quite a few nicks and scratches and stuff, but this has been preserved as well as you could hope for film elements of this material or from this era. It looks quite nice. It's very impressive how much like silent era films are still able to be preserved. So not perfect, but as perfect as I think you can get for this era. It looks very nice. And I do really like the new score that was made for this one. It really kind of settled you into the vibes of things. I really quite enjoyed it. And then in terms of special features, you get a commentary track. So borderline, really interesting bit of silent era cinema. Worth checking out if you are a fan of that era, for sure. My next film is a testament to my horrible timing that I seem to have, because whenever I watched this film, it wouldn't have been such a hot button issue that I was talking about this one. And now, if you're a film person that keeps up with film news, you know that this isn't the best director to be talking about right now. We're talking about Paul Schrader's O Canada. So Paul Schrader, like, recently had some allegations come out against him that did not completely surprise me, because he's always been kind of a iffy personality, like outside of the camera, for sure. In terms of like interviews I've seen with him and everything, and just some of his notions, it does not surprise me that there are additional stories about him that are not too savory. But putting that aside, I had watched this film just a couple days before that. O Canada is his latest film, starring Richard Gere, Uma Thurman, Jacob Elordi, Michael Imperioli, and other like various figures that I enjoy. This is the first reteaming of Paul Schrader and Richard Gere since American Gigolo. And this film, so just generally what it's about Richard Gere playing a character who's kind of reflecting back on his life, like at the kind of the end of his life, and he's granting a documentary crew. He's kind of a famous personality. He's granting a documentary crew access to him to talk about his life, while also talking but to benefit his wife, who he wants in a room to kind of expose some secrets that he may not have told her over the years. So it's really just a man unpacking his life, and just and then a lot of that life is played by Jacob Elordi, him as a younger version. And there are moments that are good about this. I like all the people in front of the camera involved. I'm a big fan of Richard Gere and Uma Thurman. Jacob Elordi is a great young talent who's been in a lot of good stuff so far. But as a narrative, I think it comes up short. Like, this is one of the rare movies I think is too short. It's like just about an hour and a half, and there comes a point where it just kind of ends and you're like, oh, that's it. Because you don't really feel like you get to the crux of this character in any meaningful way. It feels like just there's something missing to this to really get you to, like, why are we telling this story? What is going on here? But I see what Schrader's doing here, and just kind of through this character maybe unpack some of his own thoughts about like getting near the end of his life and his legacy and everything. But it just never really comes together for me. And the good performances in here don't quite make up for just kind of like a middling movie for me. So a little bit disappointed by this one in terms of just like as a movie. But it does look good for a new movie, sounds good, and then you get a commentary track from Schrader, and then behind the scenes piece and deleted scenes. If you're still up for watching Paul Schrader movies, O Canada, it's a good Blu-ray release, but the movie itself isn't the best. But there you go, it's from Kino Lorber. Going back a couple decades for Sony, we have Imaginary Heroes with Sigourney Weaver, Emile Hirsch, Michelle Williams, Jeff Daniels. So this is Sony Pictures Classics release. I do want to issue a quick trigger warning just for self-harm. This is a story about a family that's just kind of like your typical like picturesque family in the suburbs and everything. And then one day The eldest child, of the two brothers that are in this family, dies by suicide. And it really just, this film is about how this family reacts to this. The younger brother, played by Mila Hirsch, is kind of like, was more so like the, not a fuck up necessarily, but more so a person who just, like, the father character played by Jeff Daniels never really put a lot of stock in him. He really was focused on the older brother. So he never really knows what to do now he lost the son that he really cares about, and how that impacts the younger son. And then Michelle Williams is a sister who's off at college that comes back occasionally and trying to hold the family together. And just how everyone is just dealing with this tragedy. As a whole movie, I think it's actually pretty good. I didn't think it was amazing, but as a family drama and just dealing with these heavy subject matter, there are moments of levity, but there's also moments of like profundity, and just like they do get to kind of the heart of the matter on certain things, and just like the dynamic between this family and just some of the toxic elements that are at play. They handle that in a pretty engaging way, and I did enjoy it. Maybe elements could have been better, but overall, I liked it. I thought it was good, not great, but good. And I like these performers quite a bit as well. So glad to check this one out. I'd heard about it over the years just because I've seen the performers and I knew about them, but I never got to see it before. But I'm glad to see it on Blu-ray. Good Blu-ray presentation, crisp HD, nice DTS 5.1 sound. Everything looks good, sounds good, making its Blu-ray debut. You do get 2 commentary tracks, so surprising number of commentary tracks for a smaller movie like this. Behind the scenes featurette and some deleted scenes. So overall, Sony did a nice job with this one, porting over all the special features and giving it a nice HD presentation. Going back a little bit further for MGM, we have Waiting for the Light with Shirley MacLaine and the late Terry Garr, who I've talked about several times in the last year. I love her. And the more I see her, the more I love her. And I miss her even more now that she passed last year. But this movie isn't great, but it's kind of like it's the type of movie that I put on as almost like a comfort watch that I know is not going to be amazing, but it's like, it has the feeling of like the type of movie that I kind of miss being made by Hollywood. It's about a family. Shirley MacLaine's kind of like the eccentric older like aunt who she used to be like in like magic shows and used to be a performer and everything. And Terry Garr is like the young mom who is trying to hold the family together. They end up inheriting this restaurant that's out in like the middle of like this small town. But once they get there, Shirley MacLaine helps the children kind of play a prank on this man that leads the town to believe that there was like a sighting of an angel around town. And it really creates this fervor around town of just like thinking that a religious experience happened, and like all kinds of onlookers and everything are flocked to this town, and how it kind of spirals out of control. And it's not overly hilarious, but it's amusing. It's more so like it's a comfort watch, as I mentioned. So it's kind of like, it's warm, it's inviting, it's not overly serious, but it's decent. I've seen better versions of this type of movie, like maybe like a Fried Green Tomatoes or something. But overall, I like it. It's perfectly serviceable. And just like this Blu-ray, it's perfectly serviceable. Never been on Blu-ray before. Older transfer, but it looks good enough. Maybe small things here and there that don't look the best. But in terms of an older transfer from MGM, it holds up well enough. Soundtrack sounds good. No special features, just HD transfer on a Blu-ray disc. Send it out. That's MGM's MO for a lot of their older titles, but it does the job. If you've been interested in having this on Blu-ray, it is here. It's fine. More of a modern film from Gravitas Ventures, we have Ramona at Midlife. So this is one that I wanted to check out because this is another type of movie that I'm always kind of searching for, where it's like a more of a female-centric movie. I do want to first mention, before I get too far afield, This is a burned disc, so if your player does not handle burned disc well, avoid this one from Gravitas Ventures. But otherwise, good release for a movie that, like I said, female-centric, about older women, not like older women, but like midlife women. So like 40s, 50s. It kind of tells a story that I like of just women trying to find their place at all ages of and stages of life. Like this is about specifically a woman who she's a mom. She is recently kind of separated from her husband, just trying to figure out what she wants out of life, and learns that there is she used to be like a writer and creative and everything, and then she learns that there is a script being written by someone that she's kind of tangentially related to, that is basically using her as a character within the script, and just kind of like shaking her out of her kind of like domestic stupor in order to kind of fight back about like and reclaim her life and just really kind of get her drive back and reconnect with old friends in order to kind of like make sure no one takes advantage of her life, and just really just shaking her out of her doldrums and loving being a mom, but also wanting to reclaim that part of herself that really used to kind of be more creative and like have a little bit more to her, more complexity to her. Is this movie perfect? No, but I quite enjoyed it. It kind of has, I liked the performers. Most of them, I've seen a few of them in other projects, but most of them aren't like major names. But I liked the performers. The cinematography is very much like cable level. I say that with love. Like my wife and I used to watch this television series on True TV called I'm Sorry, and that very much kind of reminded us of that kind of cinematography for this one. It's not a bad thing. It's just very kind of indie in a very certain way that's not very flashy. It's just more focused on the narrative rather than the visual aesthetic. But it works well enough for this. I was more so drawn to the narrative of this one, and for that, it hit what I needed it to hit. I knew based on the company that was putting it out and kind of like the fact that I'd never heard of this before, that it probably wasn't going to be like 5-star, 10 out of 10 triumph, but it really just, it did enough to be like, that's a solid watch. I need more of these types of movies. I'm just glad this got made. It was perfectly entertaining. Great HD transfer of this newer movie. Sounds great. No real special features to speak of, but overall, glad I got to check this out in some form. Heading back to Sony Pictures Classics for a couple of international titles. First off, we have Monsieur Ibrahim. This is a French film about a young boy who lives with his father, who's kind of not in a best place to take care of his teenage son, who has more of a paternal dynamic with this man who runs a local convenience store that's right near his house, played by Omar Sharif. And just kind of their kind of dynamic that develops. He's a young Jewish boy. He's an older Muslim man, but they really form a connection, and it very just like helps him kind of navigate through life. And a lot of him navigating through life in this particular movie, this young teenager, is him hiring a lot of prostitutes in order to come of age, as it is. But it's not done in an overly gross way, but it is an interesting turn. But despite the amount of prostitutes that are in this movie, it is actually quite a heartfelt movie, and it will make you feel something if you can kind of get on board with its wavelength. Omar Sharif is great. The young boy is great. Perfectly entertaining, heartfelt movie. If you like kind of a coming-of-age tale, Monsieur Ibrahim do the trick. I'm not sure the provenance of this the transfer, but it does look like a very clean, bright, like colorful transfer. Everything looks good, no major blemishes. The transfer looks very nice from Sony. In HD looks great, sounds great as well. You get a commentary track from Omar Sharif, which was surprising but very cool, and then a trailer. So another Sony Pictures Classics release from back in the day that got a HD upgrade, which you can also say for Bon Voyage. So got another French film starring Isabelle Adjani, Gerard Depardieu again. Peter Coyote. So just quite a few known people in here. This is set during kind of World War II era, dealing with French people trying to get out of town before the German occupation, and just kind of like where this kind of all these characters kind of intersect. This is a really weird one, but still overall I lean positive on this one. The tonal balance of this one, it's kind of almost taking on like a Life is Beautiful-esque quality about thing, which I'm not really a big fan of Life is Beautiful. This one actually worked a little bit better for me in terms of tonal balance, but there's a rom-com element underlying this World War II era Nazism, imperialism type angle that works in points, does not work in others, but overall I think it, on the whole, it does overall work. There's a lot of stuff going on with like people scheming and going undercover and being obsessed with other there's a lot of stuff going on here. But if you want kind of more of like a madcap, wildly like tonally varied World War II film, Bon Voyage, it's a strange one, but it works well enough. HD transfer looks good, sounds good, and then you get a commentary track from the director and a trailer. So, peculiar one, but worth checking out. And finally, if you've lasted this long, I want to give a not safe for work qualifier for these last two films from Severin, because we're about to get a little bit racy. And whenever we talk about some Severin Films release of Russ Meyer's, we have Up and Bosom Mania, or Motorpsycho. Sorry, Bosom Mania is this kind of label of these Russ Meyer's films. So Motorpsycho and Up. Up was like his penultimate film for Russ Meyer's. I've talked about a couple of Russ Meyer's, like the Vixen films, like a couple months ago. As I mentioned then, I'm not like the biggest Russ Meyer's fan. It's just not usually my bag, but I did want to cover these for the people who are interested and are a fan of his. If you like kind of like for Motorpsycho, just like kind of like action-packed, like violent, sexually provocative, like sexually violent antics, like biker gangs that like are you want them to get their comeuppance and all that kind of stuff, you're gonna have fun. If you want even more wild stuff, like I just talked about World War II, this Up deals with like World War II in an interesting way, where you have like a reimagined Adolf Hitler and how he potentially would meet his demise, which if you want to see him attacked by a piranha, maybe check out Up. It's wild times over in the mind of Russ Meyer's back in the day. And all of this is while you have some amply endowed women, because if there was anything that you knew about Russ Meyer's, he loved big knockers. But these films, just so much nudity and absurdism and like crazy like action and violence, and it was ridiculous. I think Russ Meyer's was insane, but I say that lovingly, but I know a lot of people really love his movies. It's a bit much for me, but I understand why people like these. But you know, if you're a Russ Meyer's fan, you already know what you're getting into. So I'm not going to sell these hardcore towards you. I will just say, you know what you're getting into, and they deliver on that fact. I have these Blu-ray releases. These are also both on 4K, but I do not have access to those. But the Blu-ray releases, they are quite good. So each of these have been given a 4K restoration from the original camera negative. Motorpsycho, I believe, was conducted by the Museum of Modern Art. But Severin has done a really nice job with these 4K presentations on Blu-ray. They actually look very nice. You don't get major blemishes or anything like that. You have consistent audio. Everything that I think Russ Meyer's fans have been waiting for, Severin has been delivering with each one of their releases. So I think if you like the Vixen quality, I think you will like these as well. So we'll start with Up. So for that one, you get a commentary track, interviews, and a radio spot. and just wild content. Going back to early in his career with Motorpsycho, you also get a commentary track, interview, and trailer. So each of these commentary tracks, interviews, trailers, and just really good presentations, Blu-ray, 4K, no matter what. I think you'll be in good spirits if you're a Russ Meyer's fan. Severin's been doing an amazing job with his catalog. So if you keep collecting them, if you are interested in him at all. That is my show. I hope you have found something you are interested in. If so, please let me know in the comments what you're most interested in checking out. Share this with anyone you think might be interested in anything that I've talked about, because there's a lot of different types of movies in here. So hopefully there's something that will appeal to someone in your life who loves physical media. Make sure you're subscribed to Geek Vibes Nation's YouTube channel. Like this video, comment. All of it helps me. I enjoy doing this for you every week. I will continue to do it for you every week. I'll be back again next week with another really cool batch of titles. But until next time, enjoy these movies.